Dragon Queen, a short story. Tale of Creation by Inkrose. The two children were arguing with each other once again. This was normal, but still caused Delku to sigh in agitation. He tapped one of his chopsticks against the table, hoping to gain their attention. It was to no avail.
But I only had one! It's not fair. You got to have 3.
The 5-year-old Kotuya cried. A strand of noodle was hanging out of the corner of his mouth. He slurped it up before continuing his angry rant.
You have to let me have all of them next time!
Kara gave an indignant scoff. I was sick. Of course I get more candy than usual. It helps me feel better. The 10-year-old girl leaned an elbow on one of her crossed knees before munching on a piece of chicken. Kotuya's face turned red.
That's not true! Candy doesn't help you feel better. It's not medicine. Grandpa told me that when I was sick last time.
Grandpa's old and crazy. Of course candy helps. Why do you think you stay sicker longer than I do? Kara gave her brother a smug look before taking a sip of water. Delku's brows lowered.
Kara, stop lying to Kotuya.
The little boy looked up at Delku.
She was lying? Kara, stop it!
He pounded his tiny fists against the table.
Arya doesn't like lying. Grandpa told me that.
Like I said, kid, Grandpa's getting crazy.
Kara!
Delku cried, glaring at her.
Do not speak ill of your elders.
Gerel stuck his tongue out.
Yeah, don't do that.
An agonized sigh came from Kara's throat. Speaking of elderly people, when is Mom gonna get home? Delku elected to ignore that insult and laid into the question.
There were many of our own wounded in the battle. She may be working far into the night.
That's stupid. Kara slouched in her seat and picked at her food. Why are you fighting anyway? Isn't Lyriel's army way bigger than ours? She's going to crush us and kill everyone.
What?
Kotuya looked up at his father with big watery eyes.
Is she lying again, Dad?
Delku folded his hands, his face darkening.
Yes, her army is bigger than ours, but we have major advantages that they do not.
Like what? Kara asked.
We can utilize both dragon and human forms. We also have the power of Arya on our side.
Delku nodded his head.
If we keep faith in her, we will prevail.
Kotuya donned a confused look.
I was wondering, why can Koana turn into dragons and Lyriel's people can't? All humans are dragons, right?
Why can't you turn into a dragon, Kotuya? Kara quipped. At this, Kotuya trembled, about to cry.
Because I don't want to right now!
He screamed. The child buried his head in his arms. Delku rose to his feet, his face contorted in anger.
Kara, that is enough! Gather the dishes and go wash them now!
Kara grumbled a few choice complaints before collecting the dishes and walking out of the family's tent. Delku looked at Kotuya in concern.
She does not mean many of the things she says,
Delku explained, patting his son's back.
That is the way she acts when she is worried and scared. This war is making her afraid, just like anyone else.
Kotuya looked up, wiping tears away from his eyes.
I don't want you to go fight. I want you to stay with me and not get hurt.
I know. Now come on, to bed with you.
Delku took his son's hand in his and led him over to the young boy's bed. As Kotuya snuggled deep within his bedsheets, Delku shifted into dragon form. His body curved around the bed. Kotuya lay his head against the warm orange scales, taking his father's wing and pulling it up to his chin.
You're going to tell me a story, right? About why Lyriel's people can't turn into dragons?
Kotuya said, his eyes blinking expectantly. Delku nodded.
Ha! You know me well. But to truly understand why they cannot shift, I must first tell you of how shifters came to be. It is time you heard the tale of creation.
He pointed his nose up at a beautiful circular mural painted in the middle of the tent's ceiling. At the center was a depiction of Arya.
Thousands of years ago, the physical world was filled with darkness. Devoid of light, it was incapable of hosting life. Evil spirits would escape from the realm of souls and make their homes there, as darkness shrouded them from Arya's light. Within the realm of souls, Arya was devastated by the betrayal of Canaan. While she had known it was inevitable, it left her saddened nonetheless. He and the Cana he had coerced to his side were now in the physical realm, making their plans to take down their creator amidst the seemingly endless void of gases and minerals aimlessly floating forever. It was now that Aurea rose from her throne in the world of spirits. She was going to create once again. This time it would be life that dwelled within the physical world, yet was born of spirits. In a sense, it would be life that belonged to both realms. It is unknown as to why she decided to create this world and the residents within, but many think that she wished to forge a bridge between the realms and to make beings that were designed after her own image. Unlike the Cana, who were made to be servants and soldiers, these new beings would be crafted of her own flesh. They would be her children. As such, they would contain her life force and spirit. This meant that, unlike the Cana, who were duty-bound at birth to be Aurea's servants forever, save for those who found ways to betray their creator, such as Canaan, these new beings would have bestowed upon them the ultimate free will. Cana had said that when Aurea entered the physical realm, all of existence shook in awe. She opened her hands and gathered gases between her fingers. They swirled and writhed over her palms. A deathly silence overtook the void, and then her lips opened, and she spoke words of power. An explosion of light cast all of the watching demons into their pits of shadow. Thus, the sun was born. Aurea raised her arms and sung to the heavens. With a boom, light burst all around. Stars blossoming from the void like bright jewels emerging from the blackest ebony. The demons shrieked in terror, for they no longer had many places to hide. Aurea gathered the gases and minerals floating around her and formed them into glistening orbs. She planted each in patterns around various stars before returning to our sun. After placing the last of her orbs here, it was time for her to make our world. With her breath, she heated an orb to become glowing hot like the sun before she encased it in layers of rock and dirt. Veins of liquid rock flowed between the layers like blood streams between flesh. But such a place was still not fit for the life Aurea had planned. She held the little world to her eye and cried. Her sadness for Canaan and the Cana he had tempted churned within her like the waves that now crashed against the shores of the world. Her sighs of sorrow formed a shield of air around the planet to protect it from the harms of the void of space and the harsh light of the sun could throw at it. The very last tear she shed hardened in the cold of the void and became the moon. Now it was time for the first bit of new life. Not yet sentient, but still important nonetheless. Grasses and trees, flowers and mosses, seaweed and algae all sprouted and flourished, coating the rock and dirt with an array of beautiful greens. Aurea smiled. It was beautiful. It was almost time to make the creatures that crawled, swam, and flew. But first, everything needed to be set into motion. With a grand wave of her hand, Aurea elegantly spun, sending all of the planets and suns twirling around for eternity, with their shadows and lights creating days and nights. She was pleased with what had been made, but despite the beauty of the universe, there was still a distinct silence. The void needed to be filled. One by one, she crafted the bodies of the creatures of the world. Unlike the spirits, they were made of bone and flesh. Into them she put her own blood, her own life force. In the spirit world, she drew up little souls for each, and placed them within spirit flowers. And then, all at once, every mammal, every insect, every reptile, and every fish took their first breath. It was beautiful, yet it was not finished. There was still one thing left, her greatest creation. It was then that Arya took of herself and her own flesh to craft the bodies of her children. In addition, she drew up dirt and water from the new world to make their forms. Her blood gave them life and tethered their souls to the mortal realm. These souls, like those of the animals, were kept in the spirit world. Unlike the animals, however, they were stored in trees shaped like the likeness of their physical forms. In essence, the trees were their bodies, and so she sculpted them in her likeness. They were tall and beautiful, with skin of opal, many different colors shifting beneath their hides. Their hair was pure white, their eyes glowing with the holy radiance bestowed upon them by their creator. Each head was topped with a set of antlers to represent this power. Arya crafted 20 of these beings, 10 female and 10 male. She named them each, but called the group of them Cowrie. As their bodies lay on the fresh dirt, Arya breathed life into them. Their hearts now beat, and their lungs took in their mother's breath. Their eyes opened wide to take in the new world around them. In joy, they explored the wonders set before them. They named the animals and plants, built homes, made food, sang songs, bore children, and used Arya's magic. Arya would visit them often, giving them guidance and information about the world she had made for them. She told them that it was their job to take care of her creation, to guard it and care for it so as to not let it fall into disarray. It was their home, and as such their responsibility. She also warned them of Canaan. She knew that he would try to destroy her creation and corrupt it to his own will. So she ordered the Cowrie to never use magic that was not her own, for death and destruction would surely follow. And so the tribe of Cowrie grew further, obeying Arya's words and giving her thanks and worship for her good works. The world was peaceful and beautiful, the Cana and Cowrie living in an earthly paradise. However, Arya knew this was not to last. Despite being her creation, the Cowrie were not inherently obedient. They would disobey, as is the nature of children born of free will. And thus, that day came. Canaan exposed himself to a Cowrie husband and wife while they walked alone among the forest of cypress trees. A carpet of tuberose flowers grew beneath their feet. Canaan appeared in the form of a golden bear. Since earthbound Cana had since taken the forms of animals, the fire cats, water dogs, plant elephants, and wind horses had now settled into their new roles on Earth, and so the Earth and Cana, who governed the natural balances of dirt, metals, and jewels, had chosen the forms of bears. Since Canaan too was an earthen Cana, he too appeared as a bear, his metallic golden hide inlaid with amethysts standing out from the plants around him. He greeted them, to which they responded in surprise. They had never seen a golden Cana before. It was then that they remembered Arya's warnings about Canaan. She had told them of his golden visage. Before they could run away, however, their curiosity started to get the better of them. They were beings granted with Arya's power, after all. Surely they could handle talking to the demon, if at least to see what he wanted. But they had already lost, and Canaan knew it. He told them that Arya was lying to them, that she was only allowing them to use her magic because she was afraid to let her children become too powerful. He said that his magic was the only way to become stronger than Arya, to become gods. The two Cowrie were intrigued by this. As Canaan continued to work his silver tongue, they became more and more distrustful of their creator. Soon they consulted one another and agreed to try out this new magic to see if Canaan was right. And with that, they pledged themselves to him. The world shook, the spirit realms buzzed with evil energy before huge golden vines burst from the grounds and wrapped themselves around the two Cowrie spirit trees. Now these Cowrie were able to use magic however they wanted. They didn't have to pray to Arya, as it was their own energy that fueled their new powers. When they went back to their brethren, they declared themselves as the leaders of all, and used their magic to imprison all dissenters. Soon fights broke out, and violence followed. More and more Cowrie were tempted by Kanan and given his magic in order to fight against their friends and families. Those that were imprisoned broke out. Those that wanted to be leaders fought for dominance against the others. None prayed to Arya for help. It was then, under the burning sun, that holy blood was first spilled. One of the Cowrian children was dead, killed by a bolt of magic during a fight. The bright red sight of her blood stained the minds of all the Cowrian people who watched. Their horror led them to scour their ranks to see who had slain her. More yelling, crying, and arguing soon followed, as did more blood. Like animals, they ravaged one another, all in their lust for power. It was now that Arya's tears for the dead began to fall, causing the rain to fall upon the Cowrie. It was her blood that was now spilling on the ground, the blood she had given of herself unto her children. Just as they had abandoned her for Kanan, so too did they let her gift of blood spill from their veins. In an act of righteous anger, Arya cried out, her voice becoming the thunder that boomed over the Cowries' heads. As their battle raged on, Arya's punishment upon them manifested itself. No longer pure and worthy of carrying holy power, the Cowrie began to change. First their eyes no longer glowed. Then their horns shriveled up and blew away as dust in the wind. Their skin lost its opal luster, instead turning to plain shades of peach and brown. Their once pure white hair darkened to blonde, red, brown, and black. And yet, still they continued to fight as if they did not notice the continuing changes. As more Cowrie fell, the more the ones that lived began to change. Some grew wings and tails, others fangs and scales. Paws and hooves replaced hands and feet. Pupils turned to slits and ears grew long. Some even changed size, no longer pure enough to be true Cowrie. Arya's children had been morphed into animal-like beings to reflect their unclean state. Strange mashes of creatures like centaurs, fairies, sphinx, and pegasi now existed. Shifters could change between two strange, impure forms at will, that of the newly named human and dragon, that was, until Canaan's vines grew tighter around their trees, and many were stuck in one form or the other, or both. It was from this event that all the different kinds of sentient beings in the world were created. Finally, the former Cowrie stopped their fighting, and they noticed the horrifying chimeras they had become. Many lay down and wept, while others cursed Arya in fits of anger. Some tried to talk to her again, but found that they were no longer able to speak with her as they once had. While at one time everyone could see her, touch her, and speak with her, now it was as if she was a ghost, only the warmth of the blood left within them remaining. Alas, the battle was over. The remaining living beings skulked away from the mangle of corpses, those of like species huddling together for company. Even despite this, for the first time in their lives, they felt truly alone.
Cotillia looked up at his father with knitted brows.
That's sad.
Delku nodded sagely.
It wasn't until later, When mankind rediscovered Aria's magic, did shifters regain their ability to change between forms?
I liked the first part, but now I'm sad, and I don't want to be sad before I sleep.
Kotuya pouted.
Ah, I am sorry. I got carried away again. I will not go on so long next time. I will only tell you the ones with sad endings during the day.
No, it's fine, I guess. I'm a big kid and I can handle it.
Kotuya took a deep breath before closing his eyes. Then, hesitantly, he opened them again.
Dad, what if I decide to never turn into a dragon? Does that make me impure?
You will change forms one day, little dragon. We all do, despite our fears. But no, it would not make you impure. As long as you follow Aria, Canaan's thorns will never cut into your flesh. That is what really matters.
Delku lifted his head, gazing at the mural once more.
And when we perish one day, our souls will be taken up to paradise. There, we will be Kaori once again.
Kotuya looked unsure, but nonetheless he closed his eyes and dozed off. Delku got up and padded out of the tent, looking for Kara. To his surprise, she stood before him, her hands cupping something. She gazed at the ground, her expression reluctant but serious. Here, she pressed the object into Delku's paws. It's the last one. Tell him he can have it. And that I'm sorry. She stalked away. Delku looked down to see a piece of candy held between his talons. A warm smile appeared on his lips.
We have changed since then, I believe,
he whispered, looking at the stars.
We are all learning to be better children.